You know, some things out there are just objectively beautiful. A sunset over the water, brotherly love, that's something that's really, really beautiful. Watching my Airbnb guest use the bathroom on my hidden camera. And also this fingerstyle pattern that I'm going to teach you today, right? This is going to be 3 easy chords, actually easier than the chords that you're probably used to, but 1 fingerstyle pattern. This is going to make it sound totally beautiful. So what we're going to work up to is going to sound like this. We're going to do it easy, then I'm just going to get a little bit more advanced as we come along. It's going to sound like this. Okay, so it's in the people's key of G, the most beautiful of all keys, just like a nice fine Airbnb cabin deep in the mountains, right? So first of all, we need to get the picking pattern down before we start doing the cool stuff to make it what is essentially a major chord oscillating between its major second and third. So it's actually very simple, but it kind of sounds fancy when you talk about it in that context, right? So the first thing you want to do is be able to get your thumb to jump between the E and the D strings, okay? This is going to be keeping the time, just back and forth. Now, what makes it sound a little more musical is if you add the 3rd fret of the low E string to make like a G chord. You have a G and a D, right? So the E string note, E, F, F sharp, G. So basically these 2 notes are representative of what's going to be a G major chord, all right? It's not major yet, it's just like a power chord, but we want to be able to go back and forth just like this with just your thumb, okay? So practice this until you get good at it. Notice how I'm using the thigh of my thumb instead of coming down like this. It feels more natural that way, right? The only other finger we need to use for the pattern is your pointer finger, and it's going to be on the G string, okay? So eventually we're going to start pinching 2 of them together. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, we have 2 bar, it's a 2 bar count that we're going to be totally doing, all right? So the first bar is really easy. It's just 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so 1 by itself, 2 on the D and G string together, 3 and 4. Okay, so every number is going to be your thumb. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. See how I did that? 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Thumb both, thumb G, D. 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? So really get good at that. And that's just the first bar. So let's do the pattern actually, where we're going to take the 2nd note in the key of G, which happens to be an A, and then we're going to hammer on to the 3rd, the major 3rd. The note that we're missing to make a full G major chord is a B. A G major chord is any combination of the notes G, B, and D. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to get the G string, 2nd fret, to the 4th fret. Okay, so you can use either your pointer finger to your pinky to get a hammer on 2 to 4 on the G string, or pointer to your ring finger if you can get that reach, right? So now when we add the pattern without a hammer on, it'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. See how that works? Real steady because my thumb is keeping that time, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. 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 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1. This is going to be the next thing we do, okay? The and of 2, we're adding a hammer on. So your fingers in your picking hand don't actually have to do anything else, but we're in time getting that hammer on 2 to 4, going from the major 2nd, the 2nd note in the key of G is A, to the 3rd, G, A, B. 1, 2, and, like that, right? If you want to just drill this outside of this pattern, just do this. 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and. Okay? So if we had the whole pattern, it's going to sound like this. Right there. Okay? So 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Alright, so after I get that hammer on 1, 2, and 3, and 4, the the and of 3, I'm back to just holding down the second note on the G string. The cool thing about this key too, you could also do this just open, in which case I'm getting the root note to the second. Okay, so you can get creative and kind of take this pattern and just use a bunch of different notes to kind of make up your own creative exercises, which is really the whole point of this video, is for you to get creative with this kind of stuff, right? But again, this pattern, which is going to be totally movable, as you're going to see in just a second, starts off like this, bar 1. Okay, that's it. Now, this is eventually going to be a 2-bar pattern. It's going to sound like this. So for the purposes of this, I'm going to keep my pinky down when we go into the second bar. So 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and... Okay, so when we go into that second bar, I'm going to keep my pinky down there. And the 1 and the and of 1 is going to be the same thing where we have both the E and the D string together. And then the and of 1 is that pull off. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Okay? Alright, this is a little more steadier. Every action kind of gets, every beat, the downbeat and the and get an action. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So now when we put it together, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Okay, so I think that's really a pretty finger picking pattern that is essentially 2 patterns, right? 2 bars back to back. And the cool thing is, we can slide this to the other major chords in this key, right? The 1, 4, and 5 are going to be major in any key. So G, A, B, C, and D. This is going to be a G, C, D, but it's not going to be your granddad's G, C, D, G chord. We're going to use the same pattern all along the same string. So now I can just go from the 3rd fret to the 8th fret. Okay, same pattern. Now I've got my middle finger on the 8th fret of the E string, and then my pointer finger is on the major 2nd of C, which now this note, the 7th fret on the G string, is a D, and then I'm hammering on into the major 3rd, which is an E. Okay, so it's always just kind of like a roadmap that gives you the root note, the major 2nd, and the major 3rd for any key. Now, I'm still getting the open D string, which in G major's chord happens to be the 5th of the chord. So the nice thing about it is it does kind of have a little bit of the sound of where we started, but now we're changing the surrounding notes. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Pull off 2, and 3, and 4, and... Then we do the same thing 2 frets higher. Now I'm on a D major. And then getting that pull off in time. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and... Practice it as slow as you need to. And while you're practicing that, you can sign up for my Patreon because I've got hundreds of lessons in sequential order, so you don't have to worry about like skipping around to like where you are to find out where your skill level is. You can just take them in order and then try to find the same beauty in your own heart, right? So I'll do the whole thing. This is the 1 chord, G, the 4 chord, C, and the 5 chord, D, G. 2nd bar, let's do 4 times. Just did this C. Two bars of D. Back to C. Okay, so we don't have to stop there. There are a lot of different notes that we can actually use. The first thing that I want to do is I want to replace the open D string to something that is also movable, right? What I think is a really cool sound is actually getting the major 6 of a chord. And again, the nice thing about this is in any key, right, the 1, 4, and 5 all become major chords. We can also use their major seconds because they all share the same major second intervallically. It's always just a whole step away from the root note. They also share the same major 6 interval, okay? It's only the 4 chord in a key has what's called a sharp 4, which is like a Lydian mode thing. And the 5 chord has a flat 7, which would be like the mixed Lydian mode thing if you're into that kind of thing, right? But the 6s and the 2s always line up the same way, right? So what I can do now is I'm actually going to get my middle finger on the G, on the E string, and my pointer finger on both the second fret of the D and the G string, right? And now when I go back and forth, I'm going back and forth between a G and an E instead of a G and a D, right? Kind of a slight difference, but definitely has a different vibe. So now if I do this, it's the same finger pattern, but it does have a different vibe, right? So here's it with the open G. With the E. I really think that major 6 vibe is kind of prettier. And then now when I go to the C, or the D, I think it has maybe a more uniform sound because I don't have that D note open, that open D kind of back and forth. Also the sustained nature sometimes can ring out a little bit more. That's why I like moving, I like a combination of open strings and movable chord shapes. Just to kind of mix it up a little bit now, right? Now, the next thing you might want to do is add your middle finger into the game because it's already on the B string. If we keep that B string open, that happens to be another note in this key, right? So maybe I can go 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and... See, I'm kind of adding that B string. I'm replacing one of the notes I was playing on the D string. Really just add it however you want, and it's good to kind of get your fingers practicing here, and then it'll have a different sound here. You know I love it on that C because it makes it a major 7. And it has such a cool, peaceful vibe, right? So I really think that learning that pattern is really important because getting used to that string skip can really help with like so many things. Like, doesn't matter what chords you're playing. There's like a lot of use for it. So really just start learning different finger picking patterns and sign up for the Patreon because I go over a few more of them there. And if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, my Airbnb evaluation report, if that's a thing. Maybe don't do that. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.